Well, this morning we're going to be talking a little bit about you shall not bear false witness. And that comes from Exodus 20, verse 16. And I want to just share with you a few of our famous American fibs. We check is in the mail. I'll start my diet tomorrow. We service what we sell. Give me your number and the doctor will call you right back. Money cheerfully refunded. One size fits all. This offer limited to the first 100 people who call us. Resume and we'll keep it on file. Parents, you probably have said this one. This hurts me more than it'll hurt you. I just need 5 minutes of your time. Your table will be ready in just a few minutes. Open wide, it won't hurt a bit. And let's have lunch sometime. You know, the ninth commandment has often been misinterpreted as saying, thou shalt not lie. And that is partially correct because it does explicitly prohibit the perversion of justice through false testimony. Explicitly, though, it prohibits lying under oath, lying in court testimony, lying to a law enforcement officer or a tribal elder about an issue that concerns another person. But what about that little white lie? What about failure to tell the truth about a personal belief or about a private action? You know, in our nation, we expect our leaders, it's sad, but we do expect our leaders to lie. We expect salespeople to lie. And honesty is not something we really expect from people. I remember my mom telling my grandmother on the phone. I remember I was really young and impressionable, and I can still remember where my mom was. And Mom, all politicians are liars. Don't ever believe what they promise you. And she said it with such emphatic tone in her voice. You could tell she was frustrated because my grandmother believed something that a politician had told her. So to really understand this better, I'm going to examine some of the scriptures and look at how people in the Bible actually didn't tell the truth from time to time. They actually lied to somebody and it got recorded. Now, you might not think that there's a lot of cases in the Bible where someone lied, but the opposite is true. The Bible records people's faults as well as their strengths. It shows people in all of their brokenness. It exposes their sins. But it does this, and this is our first point, which the points are not in your bulletin, but this is our first point. God uses people in spite of their failures. Isn't that exciting? Isn't that comforting to know that you can fail and God can still use you? In fact, it's some of the most broken people that I've met are been used in the most amazing ways by God. And you scratch your head and say, you know, I stayed away from this and that, and I don't get used like that. You just don't. It's just really hard to understand. But it is true. God uses very broken things. He uses broken things pretty often. So let's look at a couple of these falsehoods, false places where people lied. Did you know that he told her that you shall surely not die if you eat of the fruit of the tree? In fact, he accused God of lying, that God was withholding something from Adam and Eve. The first person to actually lie was Cain. He lied to God, saying he didn't know where his brother was. Abraham, who was the father of our faith, when he left Canaan because of a famine and he went to Egypt, he lied to Pharaoh about his wife Sarah. He claimed that she was just his sister. And so Pharaoh was kind of like making eyes at her, saying, oh, she's available. The reason he did this was he was trying to gain favor with Pharaoh as well as not have his life put in jeopardy. And he got called on it. In fact, Pharaoh kicked him out of Egypt, says, get out of here. You just get out of here. Jacob, Abraham's grandson, who was also the brother of Esau, was another famous liar. In fact, his name means deceiver. How'd you like to be named deceiver? That's not fun, is it? I mean, give that to your actually both Esau and Jacob were twins, so that Jacob had come out second as opposed to that. Anyway, he spent his time early years trying to deceive others to get ahead. Scriptures. He included lying to his own father while his father's close to his deathbed. He lies to his father to obtain a blessing that belongs to his brother Esau at the urging of his mother, Rebekah. So the mother was favoring one son over the other, and she urged him to lie and deceive his father. Jacob was considered to be the master of deceit. And then Joseph's brothers, those are the sons of Jacob, they deceived their father by telling him that Joseph was killed by a wild animal when in fact they had sold him to a slave trader. And then, of course, most of you probably remember Simon Peter, New Testament. And at the Last Supper, Jesus told him that he was going to deny him 3 times. Let's look at this passage because it's a very good passage to witness how a person can slide into lying. And it comes from Luke chapter 22. Jesus is speaking and he says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan demanded to have you that he might sift you like wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Peter said to him, Lord, I'm ready to go both to prison and to death with you. And Peter was so certain of his loyalty to Jesus that he declared that he was willing to die with him. And just a few short hours, he would deny under oath, taking God's name, calling down an oath upon himself, and lie about it. In Luke 22, we read the rest of the story. It says, then they seized him and led him away, that's Jesus, bring him into the high priest's house, and Peter was following at a distance. And when they had kindled the fire in the middle of the courtyard and sat down together, Peter sat down among them. Then a servant girl, seeing him as he sat in the light and looking closely at him, said, this man was also with him. But he denied it, saying, woman, I don't know him. And a little while later, someone else saw him and said, you also are one of them. But Peter said, man, I am not. And after another interval of an hour, still another insisted, certainly this man was with him, for he too is a Galilean. Peter said, I don't know what you're talking about. And immediately while he was speaking, the rooster crowed. And the Lord turned and looked at Peter. And Peter remembered the saying of the Lord, how he said to him before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times. And he went out and wept bitterly. Have you ever wondered what causes people to lie? In some of these examples, and so they lied to protect themselves from consequences. When I think of some of the lies I've told in my life, especially in my younger days, I did so in order to avoid paying consequences for my actions. Abraham was trying to stay in Pharaoh's favor, and so he lied about his wife. Jacob lied to obtain a blessing that was meant for his brother. Peter lies to 3 different people to save his own skin and avoid persecution and criticism. Self-preservation was in the forefront of Peter's mind. Peter lies to 3 different people. And yet some people just lie to get attention. Some lie for personal gain or convenience or just to look better. But on the other hand, some people might have to lie to protect somebody. And then when you go to that extreme, then it probably isn't a sin. But we aren't judged solely on our actions, but also on the intent of the heart. That's why the Bible tells us to guard our hearts so that we can examine our motives and make sure that our motives are pure. So, for example, if you were in Nazi Germany and you had Jews hiding in your house and the Gestapo came to your house and said, do you have any Jews hiding here? You would say, no, I was concerned because you're actually doing it to protect somebody. But to lie to advance your own self is something else. In Joshua 2, you might remember Rahab the harlot in the city of help me, Jennifer. City, Rahab. I forgot. Darn, I can't believe I went blank on myself.
I can't think of her name, but I know what you're talking about.
I'll remember it when I stop thinking about it. But anyway, Rahab was in the city that they were going to conquer, and because they marched around it 7 times. Remember that? 7 times around the city? Jericho, thank you. Just something easy like that, I forget it. But anyway, Jericho, the spies went into Jericho to spy it out, and Rahab the harlot hid them, and she lied to the people who were coming to the door to try to find the spies. And then she let them down by a rope outside her window because she was in the city walls, and they escaped. And they told her to tie a red string, a red rope outside her window, and they would spare her when they conquered the city. So she lied to protect God's people, and she was actually rewarded for it. Not only was she rewarded by her life being saved, but she ended up marrying King David's great-grandfather. So she's ultimately in the lineage of King David, and she lied to protect somebody. See, the breaking of a commandment is a strange thing, isn't it? It's all about the heart. It's not always about the action, it's about the heart. And so when Jesus was talking to us about his reinterpretation of a lot of the commandments, when he's talking about adultery, if you just look at a woman with lust in your eye, then you're guilty of adultery. Or if you hate your brother, you're guilty of murder. Jesus is taking the whole commandment to another level. That the commandments are about the heart, not just about the actions. Because God examines the heart. Man only looks at the outside, but God looks on the inside. As believers, we're told in Colossians 3:9, do not lie to one another, since you laid aside your old self with all its evil practices. And so who is the father of lies? Jesus said it was the devil. In fact, he said in John chapter 8, I speak what my Father speaks, tells me to say, but you speak what your father tells you. He's talking to the Jews. And he's telling them, your father is the devil. He's a murderer from the beginning, and he does not have the truth in him. But I have the truth in me. I tell you the truth. And then Proverbs 25 says, like a club and a sword and a sharp arrow is a man who bears false witness against his neighbor. Our lies alienate us from others. How do they do that? Well, there's nothing more destructive to a marriage relationship than the breaking of trust, is there? If a spouse lies to if one lies to their spouse, what does that end up doing to the relationship? It breaks trust. It alienates us. And so that's why truth-telling is so important, because it's essential to trust. Same thing with parents and their kids. If your child is deceptive all the time, then there's going to be an issue when you're trying to deal with trust issues. Another problem with a lie is it never remains alone. Justin O'Malley wrote, a lie has no legs. It requires other lies to support it. Tell one lie, and you're forced to tell others to back it up. Stretching the truth won't make it last any longer. Those who think it's permissible to tell white lies grow colorblind. Did you catch that last one? Those who are accustomed to telling white lies grow colorblind. And then lying can become habitual. It's easier to tell a lie than it is the truth. And before long, a liar can't even tell the difference between a lie and the truth. They believe their own lies to such a degree that they can no longer tell the difference. Have you ever known somebody that actually believed they were true? And they were the most crazy stories, and it was always about a relative, an uncle or an aunt that did this or did that. And he would spin the story and make it so compelling that you wanted to believe it, but you knew he was making it all up. And he spent years doing that. It was funny. Another element about lying or not telling the truth is that lies are almost always exposed. Just about the time you think you're getting away with something, your lies will be uncovered, and then you'll be embarrassed or shamed. I read in the news about a congressman who lied about having a law degree, and he had barely finished college. Well, somebody finally did some research on him, and they turned it up, and he had to resign. What an embarrassment. I read a story about some guys who skipped school, and they lied about it. And it was right at the end of spring break, and it was a warm morning, and these 4 high school boys weren't quite ready for their spring break to be over with. So they decided to, on Monday morning, to go play Frisbee in the park. And after the morning of fun, they grabbed a quick lunch on the way to school. And when they're getting near to school, they finally had to agree upon a story that would sound plausible of why they were late. So they agreed that they had had a flat tire asked together with the most outspoken boy explaining their predicament about the flat tire. And that the spare wasn't any good and that they took so long to do this. And he says, it wasn't like we were really trying to skip school or anything. It's just something that happened. You understand it, don't you, Mr. Ray? Well, Mr. Ray replied, yes, I think I understand what happened. But something else happened while you were gone this morning, and we had a pop quiz. So take out a sheet of paper and a pencil, and I'll be asking you the same question on this morning, same questions I asked the class this morning, except for one. And your first question is, which tire was flat? Busted. But there is a positive element in this commandment. Bearing false witness is the opposite of bearing true witness. Do you know what Jesus commanded or commissioned us to do before he left the earth? He told us in Acts 1:8, to be his witnesses in Judea, Samaria, and the uttermost parts of the earth. Our words and our actions carry truth in them. We are called as followers of Christ to take this commandment, this 9th commandment, and our words and our actions are not just about what we do, but it's also about how the rest of the world encounters Christ. And so as a witness, if you understand what a witness does when they go to court, they're summoned and they get to sit in the witness box and they get sworn in, right? And they get to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God. And then they have to testify. Testify means to give testimony as to what they have seen and heard. And so they give true testimony to what that is. And after they're done, they're dismissed. Well, guess what? You and I have experienced, we have seen and heard and encountered the love of God in Christ Jesus. We have personally experienced and seen God change our lives and lives around us. And so when someone asks us, why are you different, or why do you do this, or why don't you do that? Are we like Peter and do we just make up some excuse, or are we going to fulfill this Acts 1 challenge that Jesus gave us and say, I'm a follower of Jesus, and he commanded me to love him and love others and to follow him, and that's why I do this? Or do we hide our faith? Do we hide it under a bushel basket? Do we hide like Peter and not say a word about who we belong to because we're afraid either we'll offend them, or maybe they'll give us a hard time, or we'll be embarrassed because we can't talk right because we don't know what to say? It's just about telling people about what God did. If someone asks me why I don't go into bars, or why I don't do this or I don't do that, I'll tell them, well, I follow Jesus, and he changed my life, and I used to be that way, but now I have a different heart, I have a different desire. He put new desires in me, and it makes me want to do different things than I used to do. And because of that, he's made my life 100 times better. That's what it means to bear witness. What did he do in your life? Bear witness to it, testify it when anybody asks you. In fact, the Apostle Paul says, always have an answer ready for those who ask you about your hope. Hope was one of our words for VBS this week. We had a lot of different phrases that we had to learn, but hope was our last one. And hope was about have an expectation of the future. I imagine the reason that you are all here today and you come to church regularly is because you have this expectation, and that you want to serve him and come together and encounter his presence even in worship. And so we do that because our hope is in Christ. Our hope is for eternity. Our hope isn't just for this world. Our hope is for something far beyond this world. And as a result, what is our reason for the hope when someone asks us? You should always have an answer ready. Well, I serve Jesus. Sometimes we make it generic. Well, God did this. That's okay, but I like to get personal. I like to use the name of Jesus because it's specific. It's clear. So I believe the New Testament interpretation of the ninth commandment is to bear true witness to Christ in our lives. Now there's finally one who never lies. Every one of us has lied at one point or another. Every one of us has told at least a white lie, if not a couple black lies, and orange ones and green ones as well. But there's one who has never told a lie. Can you guess who that is? Jesus, God. That's right. In fact, his word is so firm and true, he's never lied. You can count on every word, every promise will come true. He keeps his word. God always keeps his word. If you read Psalm 119, which is, this week, Psalm 119. And Psalm 119 deals with the word of the Lord, the law of the Lord. It's good, it's perfect, it lasts forever, and it's wholesome for our lives. And you read Psalm 119, it's the longest psalm in the Bible, too. But it's all about the faithfulness and goodness of the word of God. How he keeps his word because it's his character. His character is perfect. Every promise he makes, he keeps. He's God.